Yeah.
Yeah, I send him an offer and he
Accepts it.
having already sold it to someone else.
Yeah.
So once we found that out, we just left,
Canceled it out. So that was a no-go.
that was a no.
Get ready for the next iteration of you on your path to becoming wealthy. On this show, you'll get the insider's view on wealth creation, the class none of us got taught in school, with my co-host, daughter, and beginning investor, Sophia Bosch. And now, let's get started.
Welcome to the Becoming Wealthy podcast. I'm your host, Sophia Bosch, and I'm here with my co-host,
Mama Bosch. And we are talking today. What are we talking about today, Sophia?
We're talking about the lessons learned or my failures from my failures or from the mistakes that I made in my first land campaign.
I love that you caught yourself there with the language, because it's only a failure if we don't learn from it. And there's some lessons learned that have allowed you to refocus and pivot, and that have now, that pivoting has resulted in good things happening in your land business. So, and those things would have not happened unless you would have had these lessons first learned.
Right.
So I know that in that first campaign you had several deals, actually about 6 deals accepted, of which one ended up being, what happened? Let's walk through each one of them.
So the first one, it was the dude that was trying to. Okay, one right off the bat was like a no-go, because this dude, we found out he was trying to sell the property twice. Mm-hmm. So he had just how we think it happened is he had just sold the property, and when I pulled those records from that county, there was a bit of a delay in the county, like the records. So it was still showing up as him owning the property. So I send him an offer, I send him an offer, and he
accepts it,
having already sold it to someone else.
Yeah.
So once we found that out, we just left,
canceled that out. So that was a no-go.
That was a no.
So okay, let me write that down, because that way we have check marks. So that's number 1. What about the second one?
The second one, I did not check the back taxes. Mm-hmm. So people have to pay back taxes on the property, whatever.
Well, property taxes are incurred every single year, and this person hadn't paid his taxes for almost 5 years, and
it accumulated, and it got to a point where the back taxes itself were more than what I had offered, so we had to renegotiate. So I would basically just pay for their back taxes and maybe a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So that was number 2. Yeah. And the lesson learned there was check the back
taxes. And the lesson learned on the very first deal was, you make an offer. Sometimes there's going to be time discrepancies there, but by the time you send out that contract to title, the title company will either.
I think we even found it without the title company.
We did find it out before the title company. Once the contract came in, you did even more due diligence. Do a little bit of due diligence up front to make the offer.
I checked the county records, everything. You can see it's all there. It's all public, which is a little scary. But I checked to see the transfer of title.
Yeah.
And it said that it was this completely different person.
Yeah, completely
that
different.
That now owns it. And I saw the person, the next below him, it was in order. Uh-huh. And I saw the person had transferred it on this date to this person, and the timeline was not adding up.
Yeah. So that's going to happen sometimes, and
right.
And it comes once they've accepted an offer. The next step is to do very in-depth research and due diligence, which you did, and you caught it, and that turned out into a no deal.
And then
okay. So then what was the next one?
the next one was this property. I looked it up. It said it was like a certain size, like I think it was like 1.5 acres, 2 acres maybe. So I sent, like, it all goes smoothly, right, until we go into title, and the title.
And you had found a buyer already.
I had found a buyer. The title search came back every single time, because once they find a discrepancy, they basically redo it just to make sure everything's good. And every time they redid it, basically, the property got smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, the buyer requested at that point that they survey the land. And so he was willing to pay for a surveyor, and that surveyor basically measures the land out. That's what surveying means.
Yeah,
and
it got smaller.
And it got smaller and smaller. And at that point, it wasn't worth it for him, and it wasn't worth it for you to buy
The money
either.
also wasn't adding up either.
Okay, so that was the size one. So that's number 3.
And then
what about the next one?
The landlocked.
Okay, tell me about the story there.
Oh my God. Okay. So basically, the whole process, we had JV'd with another company to help me out. Like, I can't take calls while I'm in school, right? For potential buyers, things like that. So I rather give 50% or whatever the percentage is of the deal at the end
to the JV partner.
Yeah, then have the contract expire and
Have
me
no
not
deal.
nothing. Me have, like, at the end of the day, come out with nothing. So I'd rather have something than nothing.
Okay.
So there was a little bit. So of course, with that, it comes a little bit with a communication, like, lag, things like that. So that added on to all of this.
So what
But-
happened there?
So the landlocked property, first of all, I think I was mailing to Texas. Texas is a non-disclosure state, meaning they don't have to say how much it was sold for. So when on Zillow, if you go to Texas, any county, you'll see that it has a $sign and then a dashed line, so, meaning they don't have to disclose what it was sold for or what it's selling for. I don't know why they do that, but
Yeah. There's a list of states actually.
so coming up with the market value was so incredibly hard, and on top of that, my inexperience together, and me being a little cocky. We're not gonna talk about.
Hey.
I said the market value was one price.
One
Or
number.
one number, but it was really less. So then we go in, right? We negotiate a price, whatever. So we have a new price with the seller, and we go to sell it.
And now you're trying to find
And now
buyers.
I'm trying to find buyers. And this property is landlocked, so it has no street access. It is surrounded by someone else's land. And this person, the one that owns the surrounding land, had put a gate. So when potential buyers wanted to come and see,
Oh boy.
they couldn't get in. So they obviously went to the person that owns the gate, right? And the guy that put up the gate was trying to shoo them away. Like, he was not being very cooperative, would not let them through, like, absolute.
So basically you had like 2 or 3 buyers that he basically scared away.
Yeah.
And so now
I don't know if it was because he wanted to get a really low price on it.
because he seemed like he was
Because
interested.
he was interested, but he was not willing to pay whatever we were asking. What was reasonable because of, like, what we were buying it from the
seller. Yeah.
also. Oh, it was just a mess.
Okay.
And so we let go of that one too.
Yeah, because every single buyer, basically, he was shooing away.
Oh,
And then there was another one, the last one, which was also, it had to do something with the state being in a non-disclosure state,
Right.
and the comping being a little bit off.
Yeah.
And
So that was the other one.
and what
Yeah.
happened there?
I offered a little too much.
And on the buyer's side, when you're trying to sell it, basically, and find a buyer, what was happening there?
So we ended up renegotiating to a lower
Dollar amount?
dollar amount
With your seller?
with my seller, and then I listed it. There was no interaction with the property.
Basically, very little interest.
It was low interest. I also did not maybe pick the nicest county with as much demand.
And-
so I was like, okay, maybe it takes a little longer, which it does sometimes.
Yeah.
But I was seeing no interest. We kept dropping the price and dropping it. Still nothing. And it got to a point where it was not worth it.
Okay.
Like, it really wasn't. We were getting scary close to what we had it under contract for. And it was just not worth it at that point.
And then I
So.
think there was still another one, but the other one is still under contract and is still, getting marketed. And that's in a different state. I think this is in the state of Arizona. But I wanted to basically come on here and basically talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because any beginning investor, that is looking to start investing in land can make these mistakes. And I love that, you now have learned and have gone through the experience, these 5 different scenarios, and the outcome has been now with your coach. Yeah. What are you doing different in your upcoming, mailing campaign now that you've had, this experience of these 5 different kinds of, issues that you ran into? What is basically, how will those mistakes or those issues or those failures inform your next actions right now as you continue growing your land biz?
So I'm for sure going to be checking back taxes.
Okay.
So I've already started, like, when I'm comping or, like, figuring out the market value on the properties, during that process, I always, when I'm looking at that one specific property, I take the extra time and instead of doing it at the end or whatever, I do it with it. And I go and look at the
County
website, figure out if they owe any back taxes. And so that also plays into when I'm coming up with my offer amount. Make sure I figure that out.
And then there's another thing that you're doing different, which is you're steering away now from these non-disclosure states.
Yeah, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah, we do have a list, and you're basically making
sure. I just didn't know.
You didn't even know the concept of a non-disclosure.
No.
Yeah.
Until I started looking at, I had already spent the money to send out the mailers.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the Zillow properties. I'm like,
and it doesn't mean that you can't make money in such a state, Sophia.
Right.
You can still make money.
Because we got really close to it. So I know that you can, but...
And not only that, but there's other people that are actively flipping land right now in the state of Texas.
But they probably know the
area a little bit better.
Really well.
They have gone through the mistakes that you have gone already. Yeah. And they have shifted. And
I'd just rather not do that.
Yeah. No, but there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you shift and you pivot to also higher price properties, which is the third lesson.
I think I was a little also intimidated by the whole concept, things like that. I know it worked, but especially when you're doing something like you have it under contract and the next person's down payment is what you're paying the seller, like
that's a good spot to be, because you're breaking even. There's no cost out of pocket for you.
It is,
but you wanted to make more.
It's also intimidating when you're like, you are offering someone. In my mindset, like a while ago, it was really scary to me offering someone like $50,000 on a property, and I don't have $50,000. Like, and offering that to someone, and almost guaranteeing them that they would have that. And me having to also find that money from somewhere.
And that's why you were going for basically lower
prices, because I thought lower dollar amount, lower risk.
Yeah,
right?
And that makes sense. But
I know now that I understand the process also, so I feel better now.
More comfortable. Yeah. And that's the whole point. You learn, you gain capability. I love that you had the commitment, which is the first C of success. You had the courage to go out there and do it. Yeah, maybe you got a little arrogant, like you said, in a few places, and maybe you made some mistakes. But now you have gained capability, and now
I'm also having people check my comps.
Yeah, exactly. You're having us review your comps. Yeah.
To make sure.
Yeah, just to make sure. Yeah, it's part science, part art when it comes to, valuation.
And that just comes with time.
It comes with experience. That. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited for your next campaign. How many counties have you identified already for the next campaign?
I've identified 5 or 6.
Okay.
So we'll pick from there. And they're smaller counties because in Arizona we have I want to say 15 large counties. They're huge. And these other states that are
small,
smaller.
The counties are smaller.
They're smaller states, therefore the counties are smaller. I can just mail out to the whole county rather than just a selective area. But
yeah, and so how many records in those smaller counties? How many
smaller counties already? The way that we pull it, in the investment dominator, the county itself only has 700 or something that I can pull from. And if you narrow that down to the certain price range, and I'm targeting higher price properties, so 50,000 to 300. When I narrow that down, it gets slimmer.
Yeah.
It gets to the 200, 300 records range.
Okay.
So if I want to send 1,000 or 1,500, I would have to mail to 5, 6 counties.
And how confident do you feel? Because that's the last C in the 4 C's of success. We have commitment, we have courage, we have capability. You've gained quite a bit of capability. You have a lot more knowledge, which gives you now a little bit more confidence in county selection and going out there and marketing again.
I've been told I had people check the counties that I selected, so I basically went to certain states like North Carolina, Virginia, things like that. And I picked certain counties. I looked at the criteria, if it's active, in demand for properties, things like that, but not too in demand. Things like that I was looking at, and I picked a couple counties, and then I had someone check them to make sure. I had one of the coaches check it, and they're I don't know about this county because...
And they gave you the reason.
They gave me the reason, they said yes because there's a lot of larger acreage properties because in those areas a lot of people want to buy land to hunt.
Yeah.
I figured out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I didn't know.
Absolutely. So I'm excited that you're plugging into the system, that you're not basically too overly confident. I mean, there's something to be said for being confident, but now you're really plugging into the system, plugging into the community, which you weren't doing also as much. You were not using, your accountability partner to keep you accountable as well. Sometimes when we're doing this on our own,
a lot
a lot of work. It could be lonely. And more than anything, sometimes it's difficult to find that inner motivation and that inner drive, to keep progressing or to keep moving, forward. And you have. But now with you being plugged to the community and actually having someone overseeing your work, I think it's great because now immediately you're getting feedback as to like, okay, this is not a good county and it's not a good county because of this. So, you gain more confidence, more capability, the more that you learn.
Or just from like the experience that the coaches have seen with other coaching students.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're like, this, even though on paper it looks good,
Mm-hmm.
in reality, we've had people experience it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the best.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
So usually on paper, if it looks good on paper, it usually translates well. But sometimes there are those cases that it just doesn't.
So Sophia, I just wanted to say how proud I am of you for sticking with it, and having that resilience of starting back up your lead gen, getting
because
going.
I also stopped it for a while because I was doing the campaign for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, which took up a lot of my time. So I now have that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'm just proud that you're basically, this is not deterring you. You actually made it. These setbacks have actually made you want this even more, which is something that I absolutely honor and respect about you. And I can't wait to to see you succeed with your upcoming campaigns for those different.
To see myself succeed. That going through 5, because it was also a little bit heartbreaking too with those first 5, because I worked so hard and I saw nothing coming in, and then all of a sudden in 2 days I had 5 accepted offers. I was like, okay, great. One of the 5 has to be, or at least one of the 5 has to come out to something, and none of them.
But then you're resetting, refocusing, and going for it again, and you do have another deal, that you're selling, with a realtor, so you have that going. So it's not completely.
I also stopped mailing too. After the 5, I was like, oh, cool, I have stuff. This is going to be great. And I did not keep
the mailing, which is important because keeps momentum and keeps deal flow coming in. And you don't get desperate over, a few deals not working out because new offers are getting accepted. Yeah. So that consistency of mailing and of creating lead gen is super important as well.
I learned to keep mailing.
Exactly.
Another lesson.
Awesome. So I'm super proud, and I'm excited to have another episode when you can tell us a little bit more about some other offers that are getting accepted, from those new counties. And with that,
I'll be sending them out either today or tomorrow.
Yeah, awesome. So with that, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Becoming Wealthy. Looking forward to spending time with you on the next episode. We'll see what that topic is going to be about, but we'll hopefully make it worth your time. Thank you so much.